All right, welcome everyone. We'll just take a couple of minutes while people are joining us. Delighted to have you with us again on the Plantrician Ed Series, and welcome again to another education series. Thank you for your support for Plantrician Project, and we are just really grateful for not just your support, but your friendship. Our organization is really founded on the idea that community, relationship, and connection are the foundation of anything that's valuable in life, including a not-for-profit, including our relationships with our patients, relationship with fellow researchers like Kim Williams and David Goldman tonight. And this is how community can shape our world. And so we're delighted that we're a part of a community, that we're connected together, and that we are working collaboratively together to take this life-changing information into our families, into our homes, our communities, our churches, places of faith, and especially into our clinics and our hospitals, training rooms, wherever this can land, whether it's an Uber or a Lyft. I've done that many times too. It's just such important information. And so coming back and finding support in community, gathering resources, going back out is really how change happens around the world. This evening, we're going to be talking about something that is really deeply important to me and deeply important to all of you because you're here. This is the power of science to really illuminate a better transformative path forward. And through the work of Dr. Kim Williams, the International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention Journal, Claire Shivers, and the incredible seed funding of Dan Purgis, we've really been growing a body of evidence over the last 7 years that supports what many of us see every single day in our practice, that lifestyle, and especially whole food plant-based nutrition, is not just complementary care or an add-on, it is the foundation of medicine. So this evening, we're going to explore emerging research, clinical insights. I want to get into just maybe a little bit with Kim and David on talking about how to interpret research and, talk about the journal and the opportunity that this journal has provided for people like David and others to publish and expand the reach of science around the world. So I want to begin by introducing David Goldman. David has been in this space a long time. He's a prominent sports nutritionist, registered dietitian, exercise physiologist, certified conditioning and sports specialist. And he served as the chief scientific advisor for the Game Changers documentary. He has worked for True North Health Center, Columbia University Athletics, Facebook headquarters, and has really expanded his career through publishing outstanding science. And David, I also want to just thank you for the incredible publications that you've provided to our journal and the really important work that you're doing around the world in helping to clarify some of these nagging questions around plant-based nutrition, protein, athletes, and your clinical acumen and your scientific rigor, I think, answer these questions soundly. So thanks for being here tonight, David.
With that introduction, I can now die a happy man. Thank you so much for your endorsement. I look up to you, and your support means more than you might know.
Well, thank you, David. We're delighted to have you. And then introducing my dear friend and someone that you all know well, Dr. Kim Williams, past president of the American College of Cardiology, globally renowned, respected cardiologist, and a courageous voice in our space for really the truth in medicine and going back to the foundations of research. And I'll tell you a funny story in a minute. But Dr. Williams has spent his entire career advancing a powerful message. The leading cause of death is not inevitable. The leading cause of death is not only preventable, but it's also reversible. And how do we do that? Through a whole food plant-based plate. Kim's passion has transformed departments at Rush University, has inspired cardiologists around the world to reconsider the plate as a primary intervention tool in their cardiology practices. And his work at our journal has been beyond remarkable. He's not just the editor-in-chief of our journal. He is a mentor to authors that are publishing. He is a contributor and he is leading in ways that are truly astounding. So, Kim, it's with the deepest of appreciation and the warmest of friendship that I welcome you this evening. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Scott. I really appreciate it. I just would like to reflect for a moment on where we are, if that's okay,
Please.
before we open it up to discussion. It really is a privilege to be here and to talk about the journey that the IJDRP, International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention, has been on. It really was your bold idea, and for the Plantrician Project to go out, find funding, to have what we call in the trade a golden journal, meaning that the authors don't pay and the subscribers don't pay. There's only a handful of them in the world. None of them are in the prevention space. But that bold idea is really to bring forward, as you've said, chronic disease can not only be prevented, but in many cases it can be reversed through evidence-based lifestyle interventions such as whole food plant-based nutrition. And we have essentially taken that concept that you had and grown it into a global scientific conversation. Over the past few years, we've published work from so many clinicians, researchers, such as David Goldman. Thank you so much for all that you've contributed, and educators across more than 180 countries. All of them are united in the shared vision and commitment to improving patient outcomes through lifestyle and nutrition. I'm really grateful to all of the authors, the reviewers, the editorial team. This journal exists and has flourished because of their rigor, the courage to challenge convention, the belief that patients deserve more than just lifelong drugs for disease management. So I'm really thrilled, and my skin hasn't stopped tingling from a couple weeks ago. What's really exciting right now is that the broader field outside of IJDRP is catching up with what many of our authors have been demonstrating through science and editorials and observations, case reports for years. And that is, if you haven't seen it, the recently released American College of Cardiology, American Heart Association Lipid Management Guidelines for 2026, which came out 2 weeks ago. They've reinforced, as do many of the ACC/AHA guidelines for disease management, the central role of lifestyle. But this one specifically has a call out to a specific dietary pattern for cardiovascular risk reduction. A whole food, plant-based, vegan, vegetarian diet is now, if you want to look up it, it's in section 4.121, and you will see a class 1 recommendation to eat beans, grains, nuts, seeds, fruits, vegetables, and then they put fiber, and which I'm really glad to see. So pharmacologic therapy is still essential for many people who aren't able to make the transition just yet, and to guide them along. But we have such good evidence supporting whole food plant-based dietary patterns for improving lipids, reducing inflammation, and addressing the root causes of disease that's been the leading killer of Americans since 1918, and is still #1 around the world. And what we're finally seeing is a convergence between science, clinical practice, and getting better patient outcomes. As we look ahead, though, there's a couple challenges. I would say that our biggest challenge right now is application, implementation of those guidelines that we've been fighting so hard to get people to recognize the power of plants. And part of that challenge, secondly, is to try and get us on PubMed, where we'll have even more diverse group of contributors, and make sure that it reaches the clinicians and the patients who need it most. Yeah, we have our DOIs and our global discoverability, and you can find IJDRP articles everywhere, but the doctors and the clinicians usually look at PubMed, and so we will be focusing on that for more access, and it actually does add to credibility and accelerates the number of journal articles that are submitted to us. In summary, over the past, it's actually, I think, September of 2018, so it's going on 8 years. And we just came out with version 8.1. we really have built a global body of evidence. Now it's our responsibility to make sure that it's visible, accessible, and it's part of every physician's medical decision making every day. Because ultimately, the future of medicine isn't just about treating disease, it is reversing it, as Scott has said. And together, through science and broader access, we can make that future real. The evidence is here. The question isn't whether it works. The question is how quickly can we make it standard of care and get it implemented? So with that, I am hoping that we can get everyone on this call to help us in that mission to implement and spread the science even more than we have already. Thanks,
And to
Scott.
that, thank you, Kim. That was eloquent, and you're a true scientist when you say that your skin is tingling because of the new guidelines. I love it. That's a man who's passionate about his work.
I took my B12, so it isn't neuropathy. It's just excitement.
I love it, but I know that has been a decade in the making, you know, and so I understand why you're so excited about that, because it's you know, that level of visibility does impact what people think and the recommendations they make. And so, question real quick for you, Kim. How can the people on this call or watching this this education series afterwards participate in helping us to do what you said? Expand the science, submit articles, support the journal, share the information.
So fortunately, as an online journal, everybody gets a PDF of every article. One of the things that I would like to see happen is to take your favorite article from or two and put it up on the wall. And the next couple of weeks, change to the next one, and keep putting them up on the wall so people can actually see them. I have some key ones. Actually, you actually, I don't know if you remember this, Scott, but you actually had some hard copies made.
Mm-hmm.
And so I keep them in my office so people, as they're coming in and out and talking about their life or their job or whatever, they can actually look at and see what we're doing and the kind of science that's being put forth. And so I would say spread it around physically as well as talking about it would be great.
Yeah, fantastic. And we're going to be doing a kind of a support drive for the journal and expanding that right after the conference in May, so people can watch for that. Wonderful opportunity for us to, you know, for you all to participate in helping us to expand the platform, translate the articles, and reach in greater places around the world with this science.
Right. Can I just add one more thing to that?
Please.
I was addressing sort of the population that are the avid readers, but there's also people who have something to say. And we do take humanities pieces, okay, but more relevant is that there are people who are making observations in their practice every day, and we do take case reports. And then there are people who have a clinical question that they've been able to answer with a case series, and they know something that works because they've been able to pull it off. So the David Goldman kind of research, and so I would let everybody know. You know, yes, we do have a rejection rate like everybody else, but my goal isn't rejection, it's rehabilitation. And so I will take these articles and tear them apart. And, you know, sorry for those of you who are on who've been Kim Williams on one of your articles, but the goal is to make it so scientifically pure and stated well enough to stand scrutiny with any other journal. And so, and sometimes it takes a while to get. I mean, we've had some that are out there for months as we go back and forth, trying to make sure that we have clarity, purity, and scientific integrity. And so, please don't be afraid. It's always it's a positive. Just think about IJDRP as a place to submit.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kim. We'll come back to more of that in just a minute. And David, since you're relatively new to the audience, you know, I think I love to start with your story. How did you end up in this space? How did you discover that you have a love for research? And maybe what are your passions in research currently?
I absolutely, like you said, I am hungry for research. I don't know exactly how people make informed decisions without it. I first got into it when I was studying to become a registered dietitian, and I found that a lot of the recommendations that I was receiving to give to my patients um, didn't seem to, I hope it's okay to say, but they didn't seem to align with my understanding of uh, the totality of evidence. And so I started to look to see how these discrepancies, um, between some of the curriculum and some of the papers that I was reading, how they played out. And that's where I became really, really interested um, in research. And as well with the publishing with IJDRP, so I'm currently a doctoral candidate getting a PhD in kinesiology with emphasis in exercise and sports nutrition. And not to jump the gun or anything, but I noticed, for example, that there were very specific recommendations for exercise that we were receiving as students that we would then deliver as practitioners. And again, it got most of it right as far as I could tell, but that's why I find research so empowering, is that it gives me the opportunity to personally um, look into the nuts and bolts, lift up the curtain and see really what is, where does the evidence lie? And I find that very empowering to just be able to understand this. I feel like I have access to a tool that I feel very fortunate to be able to understand, and I don't take that for granted because I recognize that there are so many who don't, including clinicians. And so I find that extraordinary. And then to be able to synthesize my own thoughts about this and then share that with others is also really meaningful to me, personally and professionally. Um, and so, yeah, I think I would be a very different person without this component of life. So yeah, it's very foundational, I think, to my being at this point.
The curious mind needs an outlet, right?
Yes, yes. And
And
actually,
then,
to that point, I will say I know that some people will, there's all different forms of recreation, and my wife will prod me for this, but I love just reading scientific literature. Like when you say the mind needs an outlet, there are some people who will play Scrabble or whatever, Wordle. I love this. Like I read as much as I can get my hands on. I just think it's incredible that this exists and that it can be circulated no matter where we live. And so yeah, it's a blessing for sure.
It shows in your work.
Thank you. Thank you very
And
much.
much less editing on your stuff.
Thank you.
and Kim, I'm sure you're the same way. You have a curious mind that's always asking a question and looking in the research, right?
Well, it's interesting. Just with my, you remember my inner city background, seeing healthcare disparities up close and personal, and so for some people, uh, medicine or even healthcare disparities is a mission or a passion. For me, it's both, and I see the path forward as clarifying research and teaching people how to do things better than they were before. It's get a little frustrating from time to time that people are not paying attention to the best science. I don't think any of them are on here, so I can say it out loud. But the, the recommendation that came out the other day, beans, grains, nuts, seeds, all that stuff plus fiber, that actually was my recommendation 7 years ago in the American Heart Association, American College of Cardiology 2019 prevention guidelines, section 3.2. Everything about it was plant-based. And there was some people in leadership, I won't say which organization, but not ACC, who said, your section is too vegetarian. And I said, wait, no. I wrote a section, everybody write their section, and the chairs review it, and you tell me what I have wrong in terms of data. Did I misinterpret a study? And they said, well, yeah, the Predimed trial showed that there was a 30% reduction in heart attack, stroke, and death. And so I grabbed the computer and I went to that chair and brought up the Predimed trial, table 3. It did not. Breathe that 30% was a combined endpoint of heart attack, stroke, and death. And when you look at table 3, you see it was only stroke. You change from red meat to fish, and your stroke rate goes down. Your cholesterol, you're still ingesting cholesterol. Your heart disease risk didn't change at all. The cardiovascular mortality was exactly the same, and the total death rate was actually all the same. So, she says, okay, so you're saying that it reduces stroke. And I said, yeah, that's not cardiology, that's neurology. She said, well, American Heart Association is a stroke organization, and we have a journal called Stroke. Checkmate. So fish swam their way into my guideline. The good news is 7 years later, and it came out in the lipid guidelines, of course, because if you're eating animal flesh, you're eating cholesterol. And so they took that fish and turned 2 letters into BER. So it now says fiber instead of fish. So same recommendation. Finally, we are adjudicated wisely, and fortunately, I think the population is going to dramatically benefit if we can implement it.
Yeah, and that's the key. Translation, right?
Yeah.
I just like to ask kind of an overarching question about research and data, because it's a wild, wild west out there. You know, if you PubMed, Google Scholar, I mean, the research, you can find whatever you're looking for. You can create a study to design an outcome based upon methods. But it's very confusing, not only for the general public, but even for a lot of healthcare practitioners. We know a clinician, very intelligent physician I work with came in this morning, and they like to poke me. And he said, hey, I just saw a JAMA article, and you might have seen this today. It shows that, higher meat consumption lowers your risk of cognitive decline and dementia because it impacts ApoE3 and 4. And I hadn't seen it. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I hadn't seen that yet. So I said, well, let me go back and look at the study. Let's look at the methods, and I'll come back with an answer for you. But, just maybe a comment on, understanding the study beyond the abstract from both of you. I think it would be helpful for our audience.
Sure. Go ahead, David. Then I've got a lot to say. So.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Scott, that one can design a study with the end in mind, and oftentimes funding seems to require that. And so it's funny that people will gloss over that methods section so often when reading research. And I do think that as not glitzy as it may be, it is so important to understand the questions that are being asked, to really learn about confounding, for example, and reverse causality, and all the different forms of bias that can enter. And it seems to me that, to be completely transparent, we're all going to come in with our own biases, and to acknowledge them explicitly, and to speak to the research that will contest our perspective in the papers that we're publishing, and also to be aware of this in other literature as well. So I used to work at True North Health Center, as you mentioned, and I lectured there twice each week. And I remember an excellent question that I got from someone along the lines of, how should I know to trust what it is that you're saying? There are people who are just as compellingly arguing all of the counterpoints to your perspective. And my response, whether or not this was the right way to take it, or I don't know, but I said, I think that in order to take me seriously, you should be able to ask me a question, and I should be able to argue the counterpoint beautifully. Like I should be aware of enough research to be able to take down myself in this never-ending game of chess, or at least, let's say, 3 moves each. And so when we talk about, how do we hold this research, I would say that if it feels like it's fueling, something that is not grounded in that evidence, but rather feels like it's justifying us as people in a way that could be feeding or fueling a part of us that's a bit more perhaps tribal rather than grounded in empirical data, it's hard, but sort of to check in with ourselves and get a sense, which lighthouse am I following, and to really learn the tools so that we can break down that research and understand what statistical significance does and doesn't mean, and what a confidence interval really, just to be able to tease apart different types of tests. And I think sometimes it can be a little daunting to learn that piece of things, but it might take a week to at least, for I think for this viewership, for people with clinical backgrounds and for research backgrounds as well, it would not take a whole lot, and it would be so empowering. And then all of a sudden, it just opens up this whole world to us so that we can, you know, learn directly from the horse's mouth rather than have things filtered through commentary from those who earn off of clickbait and things like that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I was just thinking as you were talking about all of the articles that get published in news magazines and I just was looking online before we started all of the news articles around this study. And so, it gets reported, people believe it, nobody goes back to check it or ask important questions like you're saying, bias, construct, holistic approach to human health, not reductionism. So yeah, thank you, David. That's great. And Kim, you're teed up.
Well, really good points. I would start with the article itself, talking about the ApoE4. What's still very clear is that there's differences that has been shown for years. If you go back 10 years to the Harvard Chan School of Public Health, Walter Willett, their whole group talking about that all animal protein increases mortality for the general population, okay? But there are differences. And so red meat is safer than eggs. Eggs is with increase in mortality as much as it does, is safer than processed red meat. That's the bacon, the ham, lunch meat, hot dog, sausage. And they clearly have shown that processed meat increases mortality no matter what, whether you have the apo epsilon 4 gene or not. And so, but the theory that somehow through natural selection over decades or centuries, I should say, that adaptation to eating meat is actually good for the brain, you worry about it because you could have a good brain and end up dead from heart disease because the cholesterol and the inflammation are still going to be there. But the other thing that comes up when you see an outlier, and this is an outlier because pretty much every study that looks at it is very clear that meat consumption increases mortality and disease. And so the concern is positive publication bias. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, when you're doing biostats, like, David Goldman's favorite, talking about confidence intervals, what you're looking for is a p-value, which is a p for standing for probability of it being incorrect, okay? Or correct, same thing. And so we ask for a p-value of less than 0.05 to accept this as significant. This is meaningful. Well, 0.05, that means 5% chance that is wrong. That means that out of every 20 studies that come to publication with a p-value of 0.05, one of them is wrong. Now, if you're an investigator and you're looking for stuff, and this was really well pointed out by Neil Barnard about eggs, because the Egg Board is really good at this. You study after study after study, and 19 studies come out negative. It doesn't fit with your point of view or your marketing strategy, which is what Neil Barnard was talking about. But that one study comes up, that's when you submit to JAMA. And there's no way for JAMA as an article, as a repository for high-level science, can say, well, other than to put it into perspective for other publications, and that's always done, okay, that this is an outlier study, and make sure that everybody knows that. But they can't refute it because they don't have the other 19 studies that people do not publish. They don't submit for publication. So yeah, at IJDRP being sensitive to the positive publication bias, sometimes we take negative studies. We don't get a lot of them because everybody's into this thing that has to show something. And sometimes the showing of nothing is important so that people will stop looking at that.
That's good. That's really good, Kim. I want to just take a segue because I think this is a good question from Angela that is relevant to what we're talking about here. How do you explain the new government guidelines when there is no science to support adding meat back in such a manner? And explaining the relevance of whole food plant-based to contrast this. And so, yes, I think we all know people that served on that scientific advisory committee were incredibly frustrated that their recommendations were not included in the current guidelines. But perhaps each of you could just take a couple of minutes and answer that question and comment on the guidelines.
Well, let's go for it, David. Then
Sounds good.
Weigh in.
So I will say, I probably don't need to preach to the choir and share the thoughts I have about the new guidelines being potentially misleading. But what I will say is that one issue that I took with it, and actually I'm currently pursuing with a colleague who I've published with at IJDRP, we are in the process of getting funding from a Canadian university, basically comparing, what do the guidelines say in terms of actual written text versus what is the visual portraying, and is there a mismatch? And I would hypothesize, yes, there is certainly a mismatch, and there are so many issues with this set of guidelines. Even the mention about tallow, for example, it just does not seem to me to be remotely grounded in evidence in so many ways. And then some pieces are staying the course as they have been in the past. But I will say that I think it's very confusing. I think that it's misaligned with itself even. And I'm optimistic for a brighter future with more complete and evidence-based guidelines or components to it. It seems to me like this, I don't know exactly what's going behind the scenes, but I would bet that there's more than just public health and the greater good that is playing into these recommendations that have gone out.
Yeah, and one of the challenges, Davis, to your point, is that industry has responded to these guidelines in a profound way. Everybody's talking about protein, Subway's talking about protein, Chipotle's talking about protein. Everything is hyper focused, and it's that kind of cultural response to a government guideline that has become lost its anchor to science, that begins informing people to develop belief systems that are untrue. And it's expansion of that confusion through marketing and industry. Kim?
Well, this has been a struggle for me personally. It was I will refer people to a couple of articles. One is what that you and I wrote, Scott. It's in IJDRP Volume 7, Number 2, where you were invited to a MAHA symposium, and you invited me to tag along. And we were sitting at a MAHA table, and all the things that were going across the podium, I sat there and you and I looked it up with artificial intelligence, large language model. How true is what they're saying? The dietary and vaccine recommendations were, when you look at them, and I'm hoping, actually, can I just share the screen?
Please.
Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
Okay, share and screen. Okay, so this is from, again, Volume 7, Number 2. And the article starts off talking about, Make America Healthy. Is it evidence-based policy or not? And the major issues that they were showing, you can see on the screen. Everybody can see that?
Yes.
It's seed oils. And the fact of the matter is that there are cardiovascular benefits of polyunsaturated fats and monounsaturated fats as well in the seed oils. Saturated fat, which they were saying, which David mentioned, the beef tallow, raises LDL cholesterol and ApoB. And so it potentially increases atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. That's said very kindly. And what you're seeing in the graph is the expectation of what happens if you do an animal-based keto diet. Now, if I'm 100% sure that they believe that this is not some nefarious plot to save Medicare money, but it literally would, according to the science, it would save Medicare a lot of money if you took people, okay, and their weight dramatically went down in the first 6 months. Their hemoglobin A1C goes down, their diabetes is going away, blood pressure improves. So they're using less medication and less absenteeism from work with all the problems of obesity. You could solve all of them. The problem is, after 6 months, the benefits start to wane. And then after 12 months, the fact that you have LDL cholesterol, ApoB, and inflammation all increasing means that it starts to show some reversal of the benefits. And ultimately, having these go up, you can tolerate your LDL and ApoB going up in the wrong direction, okay, for a while. You might even have less inflammation for a while, but ultimately, those two put together after 12 months increases mortality. So, can you imagine a world where you cut the disease management costs, hospitalizations, and then the person dies? I know they're not thinking of that, but ultimately, if there's some, what do you call them, um, the people who are like pulling the strings in the background that you see in a movie or something like that.
Puppet master, yes.
Yeah, this is what you would do. You get people apparently healthy, and then they die, and they're off the rolls. And the best for insurance, the best thing you could ever do is, for the shareholders is have someone paying in their premium and then sudden death. And that's why we and ACC and AHA now do so much to try and prevent heart disease, and why we're publishing this journal is to stop this kind of thing that you're seeing on the screen from actually happening. The other one that I would refer you to, I can bring it up if you can see it, is that the Journal of the American Medical Association did publish a couple of members of our nutrition work group. You see Neil Barnard. They actually helped me do some editing on the article that I wanted to put in, talking about the dietary guidelines for Americans and how they really basically ignored nutrition science. They threw away the recommendations, the hardworking recommendations of everyone who would put in really science-based recommendations for the American recommendations. It's not new. Pointed out that there was the issue of the guideline recommendations coming out in 2015 saying reduce red meat, and then that being excluded from the final policy. And in 2020, that committee went after sugar because of the publications on increasing mortality from sugar consumption. That was also taken out. And so it wasn't a surprise, it was just disappointment because we had all talked about it. This when you stop using the experts and you start having influence from industry, the recommendations can get moved away. And that's essentially what happened. So all the details are in the article, with references to a couple things that people will be interested in. One is that sideways pyramid where that's upside down and has all the animal protein on the left side, where it can be visually first and foremost in your brain. I'm sure that part was, I'm sure, purposeful. But the other reference in there is the idea that stay politically neutral. That's a mandate from anytime I have on University of Louisville hat, or even when I'm not. And so I won't make any comments plus or minus about White House or anything like that. But I can tell you that that Executive Order 15131 from May of 2025 said that all federal policy is supposed to be based on the best scientific evidence. And that didn't happen here, in my view and the view of everyone else who's looking at it, particularly the committee that worked on it for a couple of years and had everything thrown out. And so we're all disappointed, and we all need to be on a mission to try to countermand it. Just keep the letters and the articles like this one writing in, and have them follow what the executive order says, which is that we need to stop doing that. So hopefully, we will take action. This is a time for advocacy, and lives depend on it.
And can you scroll to the top there, Kim? Someone asked they would like to take a screenshot of that. So
Okay. I think I had taken it off, but let me just see. Share again. Okay. And when nutrition science is ignored?
yes,
Okay.
someone asked to take a screenshot. And your point of advocacy is really important. And it's, wherever we can write or speak about these things, I think it's incumbent upon us to do so. Even if it's a short piece, even if it's a piece in a neighborhood magazine, it's the more that we can write and do so with intellectual rigor, the better. We have a couple of questions. This is for you, Kim. Does a whole food plant-based diet increase calcium scoring as much as statins do by stabilizing vulnerable plaques, by calcifying it, thereby increasing calcium score?
So actually, that is an active area of research. It has been shown anything that lowers your LDL in cholesterol, which a high-dose statin and a plant-based diet do it about the same, about a 50% reduction. There's some people, and people will say, oh, those are the hyper responders. Some of them are in the room right now. Fact is, sometimes it's only a 30% reduction. But the same thing is true of statins. Sometimes it's only a 40%. But if you drop the LDL, you will reabsorb and reutilize the cholesterol that's in that plaque, and that becomes a hard plaque. It goes from fatty plaque to fibrofatty to fibrous to fibrocalcific to calcific. And so I have so many patients do the right thing, diet, exercise, statin for their coronary disease, and they say, well, I want to see that calcium score again. So it's going to go up. And the bad news is, if you ignored everything I said and you ate all the animals and stuff like that, and you didn't exercise and your plaque burden was increasing, some of that would calcify and your score goes up. So the value of repeating it is actually kind of marginal. And so, yes, we actually will be looking at the contribution of plant-based nutrition to CT angiography, and kind of trying to reproduce what Esselstyn has shown in smaller series. But we're also testing education versus feeding, like we did on the south side of Chicago, because we have to not just lower the risk factors, we have to lower the disease, and our CT angiogram can tell us that.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Kim. David, here's a question maybe you start on, if you feel comfortable. What do you think of the trend in restaurants offering more charred foods as though it's great, even in some predominantly or healthy plant-based menus? Maybe just a comment on, some of those potential carcinogens and what the science might say about that.
About charred food specifically?
Charred foods, yes, in general.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly try to steer clear. I mean, those are the sorts of foods that will have more things like heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. I hope I got that one right.
Yeah.
These are the sorts of things that seem to be involved in cancer pathways. So, yeah, I mean, it seems to me that cooking method certainly matters. What you're actually cooking seems to matter, I dare say, even more. And that moist heat for certain foods and dry heat for others, these are all going to be it's a bit complex. And so I feel like the way that I've spoken to patients about this is first we dial in the actual foods that are being consumed. That seems to be a far bigger piece of the puzzle. But certainly once we're at the higher levels of health and getting the smaller ducks in a row, that's the sort of thing that I think can be important. And also I know a lot of people talk about the advanced glycation end products that can form from cooking certain foods in certain ways. And so this can certainly be impactful. I think on a plant-based diet, the potential to be problematic is less, just because it's not going to be as fatty, not going to be as high in protein in ways that are really virtuous. Yeah, certainly an issue, and I would say more so for those eating more omnivorous and less so for those who would be eating plant-based style diet.
Great, thank you.
You
And
did that really well. Can I butt in there on that one?
yeah.
So if you've been reading the journal, you know that this is one of my favorite topics. And I was feeling, and so this year, our editorial staff, meaning me and one of my co-authors of a previous article, wrote an article specifically about plant-based nutrition. It seems like it's like off topic a little bit, except when you look at the Lancet Public Health, Lancet Planetary Sustain. If you look at the planetary sustainability data and have a large database that goes back and looks at who is following a planet sustainability diet, which Harvard did, it was a hazard ratio of 0.77. That's a 23% decrease in death rate if you try to protect the planet. So in 2025, early, we published an article of 561 restaurants in 37 countries, talking about the kind of things that David just mentioned that are unhealthy. That is, when you fry food, you get those advanced glycation end products. And yes, that's healthier than frying an animal because it's way more. And the charring with the PAH and HCAs, no question about it, unhealthy. But this year, I'm hoping everyone will enjoy the article on the Planet-Based Nutrition Awards, where every place we went, we graded how well, and it was only 37 restaurants this year that were in the running. But we talk about what makes it healthy for the planet, what makes it healthy for us, and it's something hopefully that everyone will contribute to. I'm hoping that other people will turn in places that they've been. What we're doing this year is actually trying to use AI to help us select the right thing, the healthiest thing that's on the menu. Just submit it and see how it goes. And anyone is welcome to join us in collecting that data. We just kind of started a couple weeks ago, and hopefully we will have some data for next year for IJDRP. I want to keep it going. Because it's one thing to know it, it helps health. Another thing to know it helps the planet. Sometimes there's a huge overlap between the two, but if not everybody is willing to make the changes, then the planet's going to suffer, the animals suffer, and to have an animal, hurt, to say it kindly, to block people's arteries doesn't make sense at all. We can do better than that.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, so for all of you, submit your data. We'll do a kind of a comprehensive IJDRP best in class planet and person awards. So that would be fun. It's a great project. Thank you, Kim. This is one of our someone that submitted, one of the authors for the journal, Dr. McClurkin. He said, Dr. Williams, her comments about whole food plant-based diet and the economics of benefit to the patient and federal and state governments are reinforced by our current article in IJDRP regarding 5-year reversal of chronic kidney disease through plant-based diet and lifestyle changes, hemodialysis avoidance, and likely multiple hospitalizations. Most importantly, improvement in quality of life for the center of this entire discussion. So yeah, thanks JB for your submission and for continuing that great work.
Absolutely. I'm hoping that everybody understands the importance of this. That is, we have this burden of chronic kidney disease. It isn't evenly distributed. And we were talking about ApoE4, so I can talk about ApoL1. It's overrepresented in our African American population. Why? A lot of people have actually heard that sickle cell got overrepresented in the Black and the Mediterranean population because it protected from malaria death. Great. Well, this mutation protects from African sleeping sickness. You know what? We don't have African sleeping sickness. We don't have trypanosomiasis in the United States that I know of. And so that gene is not helping anybody, but it codes for more kidney disease, particularly when exposed to animal protein. So thanks, Dr. McClurkin, to us to spread it around some more, get everybody to realize that animal protein is toxic once you start having any kind of kidney disease. And you can not only keep people off from progressing to stage 5 and being on dialysis, but you can actually get some reversal. Stabilization would be great, but reversal is even better. And then I got one more for you in this area. Suppose you are stage 5 and somebody tells you, well, you should go vegan. It turns out that one of the best sources of vegan information, drum roll, is DaVita. You know, that huge dialysis company? And I'm trying to think, why is DaVita pushing plant-based nutrition? Then you realize if you don't eat animal protein, the rise in your BUN creatinine between dialysis session goes down. And the volume overload, because you're not eating a whole lot of sodium, goes down. And the inflammation goes down. And the coronary disease, which is the major cause of death of kidney disease patients, is not kidney disease, it's heart disease because it accelerates it 12 different ways. And so they are really big into plant-based nutrition. And you could say that it's financially motivated by two things. One is if you dialyze someone for 2 hours instead of 4 hours because they don't have the metabolic acidosis because they didn't eat the meat, that you can put somebody else in that chair and make them double your profit. But the other thing is that dead people don't come to dialysis. So and that is absolutely in the nephrology literature that plant-based dialysis patients live longer. So I think DaVita's got it exactly right. And I wish that people would look at it before they end up with DaVita. Let's do it now.
Sounds like we should invite them to the conference.
Oh, that would be great.
I know, that's what I'm just thinking.
Materials are amazing. The
Yeah.
PDFs that you can print out, put on your refrigerator.
I'm saying that for our staff. Exactly. That would be fantastic. Kim, somebody asked for the resource showing the egg intake associated with higher mortality than red meat.
So that is Song is the first author. It's Frank Hugh and Walter Willett. It's 2016 Journal of the American Medical Association. I can show it if you want me to. I've got it right here, but
yeah, go ahead and pull it up. Somebody can screenshot. That's great.
Okay. I just happened to be talking about it with a patient. Okay, here we go. Okay, share the screen. And there it is. Okay, so, and display. There it is. And so continue to share. Yes, continue to share. Can everybody see this? Let me just back up a slide. That is Dr. Song's article, Association of Animal and Plant Protein Intake with All-Cause and Cause-Specific Mortality. And this is the finding. So this, for those of you who do not spend all your time doing science stuff like Dave Goldman, the forest plot, if it's on the left, in this case, it's favoring eating plant protein. Okay, this is from the Health Professional Follow-Up Study and Nurses Health Study 2. So it's, I don't know, 60,000 people followed for 30 years and with food frequency questionnaires. And so what it showed basically is that if you replace any animal protein, the mortality, all-cause mortality, and cardiac disease mortality goes down. Okay, so and you can sort of rank order them. Poultry and fish seem to be a little safer or less of a benefit with plants replacement. Still live and dead, no question. It's just that it's a later death, presumably. That would be better than dairy, which is better than red meat, which is better than eggs, which is better than processed red meat. Okay. Now, if you look at cost specific, then it changes just a little bit. And you wonder, why did the eggs not reach, everything reached statistical significance, okay? That p-value of 0.05 we were talking about earlier, everything did reach statistical significance except eggs and heart disease. Well, why was that? Probably because of this. Dead people don't have heart attacks. There's so much more cancer in fact, that's the only one that actually reached statistical significance was eggs and cancer. That is something that everyone should realize and focus on, that there are no safe animal products for human consumption. This was published 10 years ago, largely ignored. We got one guideline now that says it, and that was because they were talking about cholesterol treatment. All right.
Great. Thank you, Kim. David, well, I want to go to you because I had this question that, for people that are looking to publish research or even somebody researching a topic, how would you go about a good literature search that's comprehensive, that also kind of avoids bias of simply finding articles that you're looking for, but, takes a more comprehensive approach toward a topic?
That's a great question. And I would say to be as systematic as possible, to really define what your search terms are, your inclusion and exclusion criteria. I think that for me, anytime I do that and then I perform my search, and I'll do it usually, it'll always be PubMed, and sometimes I'll add to that, like Google Scholar could be helpful, for example. But once I will then find all of those papers, and this takes so much time. Once I find each of those papers, and then I read the paper, and then I'll also read the discussion, and I'll sort of look backwards in time, to see which papers did the authors feel were most relevant in discussing relative to the actual results of their study. But then I'll also go on PubMed and click the cited by. And so I can sort of look forward in time as well in these ways. And so it sure takes a whole lot of time, but then I'll sort of organize these to try to get a sense of, what's falling on this side and what's falling on that side. And then I'll try to sort of make sense of that balance. And whenever possible, I'm a big fan of systematic reviews and meta-analyses that can help put these sorts of things in perspective. But yeah, I definitely think that just being really clear with what those terms are, and then like I said before, to be able to walk away from the paper, being able to confidently argue from the opposite perspective would, I think, speak to that we haven't just been walking into an echo chamber of sorts and just putting out what interests us and what we think is correct. So yeah, I feel like that's certainly a good way to do it. And like I said, to be as systematic as possible. And actually, if I may just jump back a couple of comments about the guidelines when we were talking about whether they're, how aligned is this with the actual consensus? And I just wanted to mention that recently I published a systematic review and meta-epidemiological study with the American College of Lifestyle Medicine in the journal Advances in Nutrition. And we looked at 78 clinical practice guidelines, as well as articles, positions from large health stakeholders and major medical societies, and also guidelines developed by governments. And I just wanted to put that out there as, for one thing, I think the figures can be very helpful in terms of figuring out, like, how does this set of guidelines relate to what the more global consensus is. So for example, whole grain reduction, it seems, right, like something like 2 to 4 servings or something like that is being recommended now, but really the majority of clinical practice guidelines seem to be advocating for just increased intake. And so I just wanted to say, to take that sort of systematic approach where we're really trying to look at the totality of evidence, and then to sort of distill that into what the more salient and impactful and really just high quality research happens to be, that we can only discuss so many papers in a given article, and so really the ones that are particularly insightful, like that paper by Song et al., which I love, that 2016 substitution. That's a wonderful, wonderful paper. And I have a paper currently near completion looking to place dairy on that spectrum. as well, because I think a lot of people think dairy is healthy, but it's only because it's a compared to what game, and you can
Mhm.
always find something worse. So plotting it on that continuum, I think, is so valuable. And really, that's, I guess, how I would aim at this particular question, is to try to get a sense of, if we get the whole big picture rather than just, is this good or bad in a vacuum, which is just not the way the world works, right? It seems like it's always a relativity game in every way. So that's how I would approach this as systematically as possible, and then remembering that it's all a question of relativity rather than just black and white. This is good, this is bad, which seems to be uh, the way that our minds often work. It's probably just simpler to remember that this is, black and white and good and evil and everything, but it certainly doesn't seem to work that way in real life, to the best of my understanding.
Right. And I love that approach. Thank you. And it's, I was also thinking back to Kim's comments earlier about a whole person approach. It's so you may, it's the article's saying that you may reduce cognitive decline, slow it down with meat, but you may die of a heart attack, increase your risk of kidney disease, have colon cancer, I mean, all of these things. So it's stepping back as well, isn't it, to look at the whole picture, the whole person, and evaluate relationships as well. All right, so as we wrap up, just a couple of quick questions for you. We have a number of people that have thanked us, and thanked you all for your contributions and the excellent webinar. And for everybody that's watching, we will send out a link in the next week. So please be watching, and we always want you to share this with everyone. And if you're not signed up for the IJDRP, it's free, ijdrp.org. Sign up tonight, send it to 10 people on your contact list, and share it with your colleagues. It's an incredible resource with authors like David Goldman, leadership under Kim Williams. You can't get anything better. So please join us. Kim, this is a quick one for you. Catherine says, I have a genetically high LDL. Did Dr. Greger's Rex to reduce it and have been pristine whole food plant-based for 16 years, but LDL went up on retesting. Do you recommend Repatha or just your general comments?
Not supposed to practice medicine on a webinar.
Yes.
So
Generally, we'll speak in generalities.
Well, interestingly enough, in the IJDRP this time, has somebody set this up for us? In the journal version that just came out, 8.1, one of the articles is the ICNM, that's the International Conference of
Nutrition and Medicine.
Nutrition and Medicine, nuclear. Okay. And that's and I was asked to speak on exactly that topic by Neil Barnard. And so my article is the first one, not because it's the best, but because the abstracts go chronologically. I was the first speaker, and it's entitled essentially, "I'm doing everything right, and my cholesterol is still high. What do I do now?" And so I encourage you to pull up the journal, okay, take a look at that article. It's got a lot of graphs and a lot of information about cholesterol, but ultimately, many of us have cholesterol genes. I actually have the cholesterol gene that made me vegan. I have the one of the 4 SNPs that were actually only discovered a few years ago. The SNP is a single nucleotide gene that really can change things completely. And for me, there actually was a gene that has a normal cholesterol all your life, and then when you turn 45, it goes like this. And that's what happened to me. That's maybe a vegan cardiologist, believe it or not. That type of abnormality, you have to take medication, or, and because plant-based nutrition can only reduce it 50%. Suppose you need it 80%. Then that's when, in the old days, people would just pass away. In the new days, you have a fabulous number of medications, all of which are in that article. And I won't, mention anything in practice medicine on a podcast, but or webcast, but the information's there. If you're struggling with your physician, you can actually come and see me if you're in one of the states where I'm licensed, but you could just take the article to your doctor, have them take a look at it, and That one and the recent lipid guidelines are really good. There's a whole section on genes, heterozygous, homozygous, familial hyperlipidemia is what it's called.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, back to the journal, right? That's where we can find these kinds of answers. So thank you, Kim.
Scott, if I may, if you don't mind, I just wanted to say, I know you didn't request this this particular plug, but if I would feel badly if I didn't mention this, because I know we're talking about IJDRP, and I just want to put out there that I've published in other journals that are large journals and that have whatever impact factor. I just want to share that they often feel depersonalized in a way that IJDRP does. It feels more connective and more human. And for example, one of my absolute favorite colleagues now, she's a sports medicine physician in Canada. And she reached out having read a paper that I published. It was the very first one in IJDRP. It was about creatine in relation to plant-based diets and health and exercise performance. And she reached out and we've collaborated so many times since. I have so much respect for her. I've met her at conferences. And this is just one example. Other people have reached out too through this journal, through publishing in this particular journal. And can I tell you, the number of people who have connected with me in this way, in ways that just inspire me like crazy, just articles that we wouldn't have even thought to write on our own that we can collaborate and do together. I just want to say it's a very different feeling. It feels sort of like it's very, maybe going to coming from a small town versus a larger anonymous city. It just feels like the sort of place where it's not an uphill battle to try to explain things that are already well established in the literature, where sometimes I'm scratching my head like, how am I feel sometimes like I'm the only one, and I'm clearly not the only one who feels this way. This group has come together thanks to the work that you're doing. And I just want to say, connecting with colleagues who all feel like we're the only ones in our respective small town, it creates this more virtual experience of connectivity that is so extraordinary. And so I thank you very deeply, both of you, for doing this. And I continue to make connections with people who I actually really care about in these ways. And so all of that is possible through this. And if there was no other reason, and there are many, to work with this particular journal, it's this sense of home and community and just inspiration that comes through these collaborations with those few other people who also, not actually few, but it feels sometimes like it is, people who come together. And so anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for that. I didn't know I assume there wouldn't be a question about that, but I would have hated myself if I left the call without having mentioned it.
Thanks,
Wow,
David.
thank you, David. That is very special. I know that warms both Kim and I our hearts, because that's what we hope to create is, a community around best science, best evidence. So we really appreciate that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Let's just do a quick, I think we have just a couple of quick questions to finish up. So Kim, 30 seconds, can calcified plaques be reversed?
You hope not to. So I haven't seen any data on it. There is a way to reverse them. It's kind of scary as a cardiologist with a lifetime. I actually was a student of Seymour Glagoff, the guy who really characterized plaque, and the Glagoff phenomenon of artery expansion as the plaque accumulates so that the lumen stays normal until that. So the people being told you only have a 10%. No, that's a massive amount of plaque. You've overcome the ability of the artery to remodel outwards. Therefore, it's severe, even if it looks mild. That guy. And so having him mentor me in plaque and understanding the histology, the pathophysiology that I talked about, those 5 different types of plaque. There is K2 nattokinase that actually tries to remove calcium from plaque. Is scary because they've shown that they can do it, but have they shown that whether or not they see the calcium is making that plaque stable? And so I encourage whoever's working on that area to do longitudinal studies, not just the coronary calcium score, but cardiac outcomes. Maybe it's actually working. But pathophysiologically, it sounds scary until they come up with the data saying, yeah, if we get, for example, we get the calcium out, and then what fatty plaque is remaining can more easily get out of this, be transported out of the cell. If that's the case, that'd be great, but we got to show it. That's where having the data and the evidence can really help people.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry for
And David,
more than 30
quick
seconds.
question. Quick question for you then. Changes in food pyramid are a pushback against the huge increases in overweight obesity. How can we redirect Kennedy's people to see their error and refocus on plant-based nutrition instead? This is from Grant in New Zealand. He's been joining us on all these, so we appreciate you, Grant, from other side of the world. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Grant. The question, it seems, is how do we hold the current guidelines, and how do we sort of navigate ideally past them at some point? And that's where the paper that I was just mentioning, the Advances in Nutrition paper, where we just look at, and also what Kim was saying about positive publication bias, that really, these sorts of things are going to slip through the cracks. And it's going to happen, and it's going to influence a whole lot of things that are really unfortunate. And sometimes we'll take that one step back. And it is my understanding that globally we are absolutely moving forward. And it really just comes down to looking at this in context and to understand. I'm trying to not be too political either, because there's actually a paper that I just submitted, not to IJDRP, to a different journal, that was sort of blocked on those grounds. And I guess it just seems to me that when the evidence is behind you, which it is in a whole food plant-based diet, it really, the data really do speak powerfully to this approach. It seems to me like the truth wins out in the end, and it's just a matter of time. And as people's consciences and greater purposes align less with perhaps their wallets and more with the greater good, things are going to keep marching in this direction. So I remain optimistic, and I would just suggest that when people do hold that up and say, look, this is really valuable, this current set of guidelines, this is what the experts have arrived at, I would just zoom back out again and say, hang on, let's just look across the entire planet, and let's see what all of the experts are saying. And that way we can sort of weed out a bad egg of sorts, or at least appropriately diminish its relevance relative to, what others are espousing.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And to your point, this is the last question before we wrap up. For both of you, because you mentioned planetary health, David, do you think that the dual focus of planetary health and human health is actually gaining traction in the evidence base, not just the cultural sphere?
Yeah, are you saying that there's an alignment?
Is there? I guess it's really is that the question is, within the evidence-based literature, are you seeing a growing interest in that combination of planetary health and human health, that
Absolutely.
intersection?
Absolutely. And it seems to me that the younger, up-and-coming demographics are really, seizing that. And that's very inspiring to me. Whenever anyone is looking out for the greater good, I find that really tremendous. And so it seems to me that these motivations for the environment are absolutely increasing, and that, again, thankfully, it maps on beautifully to these health outcomes that we care about. And so we can sort of get at this tool that is serving us in so many ways, and our motivations can be different. It can come from serving the environment, it can come from supporting our health, it can be driven towards animal welfare. And the wonderful thing is that all roads seem to lead to Rome. And yes, I'm definitely seeing an alignment, and I'm also seeing younger folks caring about this in a way that's a breath of fresh air.
Great, thank you. Kim?
So thanks. You've been so kind to let me show stuff. Okay.
Let's go again. Share screen.
Again, almost every question has something to do with something we published in the journal. I'm showing you the Planet-Based Nutrition Award This is the second one. It's called Spirit Elephant. I usually don't name any companies in anything I do. I have no financial relationship with them at all. They actually are a environmental stewardship um, restaurant, and it's absolutely amazing what they are able to serve. That's completely plant-based. Um, but the other one that was really high had nothing to do with the planet. It's just really great French cuisine made vegan at whenever I go to the French Open. And but the main reason it wasn't just to make everyone salivate looking at this food, this plant-based food. It was to say that this article that we publish really does go into the fact that, and it has the data that you were just asking about. It's analyses of the Planetary Health Diet Index and the Eat Lancet Commission absolutely shows an improvement in human health. And so if we want to survive, we want the planet to survive, it's the same recipe, which is whole food, plant-based, vegan, vegetarian diet.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah,
And then
I'm
my
sorry.
final question to each of you. Oh, go ahead, David.
Oh, if I may just add one more thing. I didn't think about it, and Kim, what you mentioned brought this up for me. I wanted to say just a few years ago, there was an extraordinary study where people following an omnivorous diet and then supplementing their diet with whey protein was compared against people following a vegan or plant-based diet and supplementing with plant-based protein powder. And they doubled the recommended daily allowance for protein intake. It was 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight now. And then they had them lift weights, and then they saw how are they getting stronger? Are they building more muscle? Is it proportionate? Is it similar? And it turned out that when you match total protein intake, again, it was the same. Now, what I wanted to share is that I'm working with some colleagues right now from the Game Changers crew, looking at the planetary implications for what happens when we source that protein from whey versus, let's say, from soy. We know that the outcomes are going to be the same in terms of hypertrophy and strength and all these other forms of output. And so if at the end of the day, this athlete or just a recreational casual exerciser at the gym, if we know they can build everything that they care about similarly at the gym, and one of them has a profoundly, and spoiler alert, obviously the plant-based diet just trounces the animal-based diet, especially when the protein intake is so high, that that's another piece of this that I wanted to share, is that if the health outcomes are better, the performance is at least as good, if not better. And recent systematic reviews have found, better jump height, better VO2 max, better relative strength, like push-ups and pull-ups. So you're going to perform better, you're going to be healthier, and there's a much better implications for the environment. It just seems like this trifecta of fantastic. And I just wanted to mention that because, we were talking about the planetary implications.
Yeah, thank you. That's great.
Fantastic.
I love it. This is so fun. Yeah, I'm a nerd like you, David. I love reading research. I love listening to both of you. I love the new studies. It is exciting, and that's why I think we're all so passionate about data, science, good evidence, and the IJDRP. So just kind of in wrapping this up, I'd love for each of you to just share. I'll give you a couple of options. Inspiring encouragement for a new practitioner in this space that's just trying to navigate and learn and understand, or kind of encouragement, inspiration for a new student coming into healthcare medicine and maybe looking to start doing some research.
I wanted to say, first of all, if there's someone who is new to this looking to get involved, I just want to say, feel free to reach out to me. A sort of dream that I have is to connect with a whole bunch of others who are, where we share a similar vision or are just at different levels of how much research we've done. And I'm certainly not at the top of this higher. I mean, there are people like Kim, just absolute titans in this field, where I'm absolutely learning so much throughout this process. But at the same time, if someone has never gotten involved in this way and doesn't have funding and really just wants to get involved in some way, I'm happy to share my email. And so I just wanted to say I'm personally available in these ways. I think connecting with others can make it far less daunting to bite off a small piece of a paper can be much less intimidating if you haven't done this before. And then also to just, yeah, kind of walk through this process together. And so I just wanted to say, please don't be intimidated. There are people who I know who are established medical doctors and people with PhDs in their field who just don't publish. And sometimes it's because it can be intimidating, it can be a bit scary. And so I just wanted to say, connect with others like us who are excited about this and excited to bring you aboard, and then pay it forward, and then you'll hopefully do this and reach out to someone else as well. So I would just say, if you feel overwhelmed, or if you feel like, hey, these stats are just throwing me off, just to connect with somebody, myself or others, who might be just one small step ahead. It might feel like we're not way further ahead. We're somewhere on this path. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, David. That's amazing.
I have a little bit to say on it if I can. I really appreciate David's comments. What I would say as a journal editor is mentorship is really important, and having someone like David actually offer to work with you, that's a real treat. He's a gem. I would say that if you're doing work in prevention or lifestyle medicine, IJDRP is exactly the kind of journal where your ideas won't just be accepted. It's going to be amplified and understood. And early in your career, it's really kind of important to get your feet wet with not just with the mentorship, but putting in doing clinical studies, answering clinical problems, writing it up, and making sure that you're as far as I know, it's just like the super golden. I mentioned the golden journals before, where it's free to the authors and it's free to the audience, subscribers. But also, as an editorial office, we do everything we can to try to make the science presented better. And so you actually get mentorship from the IJDRP that I don't think you find in any other journal that I'm familiar with. So keep them coming.
Keep them coming. That's right. Thank you, Kim. And thanks for your leadership on this, Kim. The journal would not be what it is today without your leadership. And so you have been an extraordinary leader, a mentor of so many people, and you have created a journal that is read around the world. So thank you for that incredible investment. We appreciate it. And I also want to just take a minute and thank Dan Purgis, who provided seed funding and significant funding along the way to allow this journal to come to life. So thank you, Dan, if you're watching. And David, thank you for joining us tonight. It's so wonderful to have you. You have brought a real enlightenment around evidence. Your humility is admirable, but I want people to know what a great scientist you really are, and the articles you're producing in the plant-based lifestyle medicine space are instrumental in really answering key questions. So you're very humble, and I greatly appreciate that, but I also want people to understand that you are producing really important science and you're shaping the future of our movement. So thank you very much, David.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And a special thank you to all of you for joining us. I see you all hung in for an hour and a half. It really was an engaging conversation. I wouldn't have left either if I could. But we appreciate you. If you're not signed up for the journal, please do so. And I want to encourage all of you, take a few minutes tonight or tomorrow, send that journal link to your friends and family, and let's get another 1,000 people signing up from this webinar. If you have articles you'd like to publish, as you heard, we have mentorship available. Please submit your articles to the journal. We would love that, and we would love to see the questions that you're asking and the answers that you're discovering as well. And importantly, please join us at the conference this year, Power of the Plate, May 14th through the 17th in San Diego. This is exactly what we were talking about on this call. It is the best evidence presented by the leaders in our field, with an emphasis this year on as David said, all roads lead to Rome. The evidence is that whether you're eating for your health, for agricultural systems, for community culture, for connection, for animal welfare, for natural resources, for oceans and waterways, food packaging, microplastic, whatever your reason is for choosing a healthy diet, the center of that is a whole food plant-based plate. All roads do lead to Rome, and Rome is the whole food plant-based plate. So please join us at the conference. Live conferences are important more than ever. We need in real life connection. Having dinner with Kim or David is invaluable, and the opportunity to sit, develop relationships with people only happens when we're in person. So please take time to join us May 14th through the 17th, San Diego. Find all the information on plantricianproject.org. So Kim and David, thank you once again from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate both of you more than you know. Thank you for your gift of time and your incredible leadership. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks. So I was going to say, Dave, good luck with your PhD. You don't need luck. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Glad to hear that's happening.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right.
Yeah.
Take
All
care.
right. Thanks. Good night, everyone.